now. Currently, that took a little bit, but a lot in terms of trying to get that joint up and ready to do that. But we back again, Gilded Sages with another episode of Eavesdrop. What's up to everybody? We are coming to you all post Black Friday and post Thanksgiving. Today, in the words of our good brethren, what's his name? The dude, Plies. Today is the last day to eat your leftovers. Tomorrow we are done. That's if you cooked on Friday. If you cooked on Friday, I think you got a little bit of leverage. You might got a little bit of leeway. No. I'm over it all anyway because I don't necessarily want to be that heavy and want to be,
Yeah, I'm over it too.
That.
This is not something new. I get bored. Like I had this for 2 days. I'm bored now.
Yeah, you sound like the lady. She don't like eating stuff back to back in general, overall. But with all that being said, we just come in today as a check-in. In the description below, you can find all of the details for the call-in. We would appreciate it if you all call in, because today is just a regular old conversation. We just wanted to talk about and check in with everybody, see what's going on around the world, as Rona is still on the loose. The cases are going back up. We got Joe Biden, president-elect, going into the new administration of 2021, and we know what 2020 has given us, and it don't look like it's getting better. But with all that being said, I forgot, Donald Trump is on the other side, still talking about what he's doing, and we got our brother Q in here. I know he's gonna bring the global aspect of things. You be following the global politics more than myself. So I would definitely love to get some, updates and some homework to go back with, to look to some things. Because as you know, I came off of, a merge, and then Thanksgiving happened. So I've been kind of off of the radar for these past 2 weeks, just keeping a small lower ear to the street or the tabloids to see what's going on. And I see some
What's the difference?
Nothing.
What's the difference?
It's all fake news.
It's all gossip.
But unlike any other show, today you can call in whenever, including right now. We aren't necessarily on a timed, no agenda. Again, if you want to talk about, I saw Summer Walker online. I woke up earlier this morning before I went to go run. She out here. She's talking about black men now. So it is what it is. It's a lot going on. Whatever you love, whatever you like.
Wait a minute. I gotta say this. You know what Summer Walker is? Just came to my head.
What?
She's like a cop. She's like if SZA gave a piece of her liver to Candace Owens. Think about it this way. Think about it this way. Like, you know how SZA caters to a certain audience?
Yeah.
That's Summer Walker's audience too. But she's kind of out there like Candace Owens. Like, Summer Walker be saying some wild things. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I haven't really followed her.
I don't follow her,
but
whenever you see her pop up,
it's always for some crazy.
It's like, you wow! It's like you are aesthetically pleasing, but what's going on between there? I don't know.
I didn't know she was with the dude London on the track. I never outside of beats, a few beats. I don't really know.
Is this another industry
relationship?
Yeah.
This is why we got problems. This is why we got problems.
It's a thing, though. It's a thing.
I know, but this is why we got problems.
He just had a baby with like another chick, and then turned around and got hurt. And it's like, how you gonna complain when you with a dude that's entertaining all of these type of? And it's like, yo, what do you expect?
Can we be entertained by something other than family drama?
No.
Can we at least get that in sitcom form? I don't like it in sitcom form and not reality TV.
I was about to say, that's why reality TV is still the #1 seller. You got people out here still just trying to invoke anger and rage in the African American community as a marketing ploy and tactic these days.
Oh, yeah,
it's crazy, man. But I would like to, What
sorry,
y'all?
we're on a tangent. I'm listening.
It's all good, man, because we just chopping it up. While we at it, can you please drop in the chat for everybody the link for the Zoom call on the YouTube thread, and I'll do it on the Facebook one. So if anybody wants to call, it'll be right there for you to just access really, really easily. I know everybody loves convenience. You know, COVID has brought about mass convenience in our society with DoorDash, gig economy, all of those type of things.
We know what you feeling.
Yeah, you know how I'm feeling. You know how I'm always.
You don't like the silicon that is the valley.
No, not at all, man. Not at all. They out here running amok. My man Jeff Bezos. Tell you about this guy. Did you peep? This motherfucker got a pharmacy now, fam.
Oh, that's
pharmacy.
all.
So I was talking to the lady.
So he can give his workers, so he can get more money from his workers after he gives them health issues.
I don't know how it's gonna work, but I know it's a lot of industries that's gonna take a hit with him jumping into that pool and into that lane just off of the sheer capacity of which they can distribute. Because you know, the lady worked at a vet clinic, and so she was like, "They eyes already peeled. Like, this man about to be dipping into our market here." Because I don't know, again, if we can compete with the
scale of economy,
the scale and the price in which you can deliver the scale. Because that's the thing where I don't think people see how dangerous Amazon really is in as it relates to like
book owners do. They fighting back
because they already
they
was the first wave.
They was the first to get that thing stacked.
Like what was it? Because they was just that at first, and what people don't realize is like when you undermine competition in so many ways when not only do you like have all of the different levels of the supply chain in the business to business ecosystem, but you also are delivering it at rates in which nobody can compete. Like Slim.
Yeah.
Amazon
Prime did with Standard Oil.
Slim.
Yeah.
Like I don't think
data is the new oil.
I saw a press conference too with him, and he was talking about how Amazon uses data. He talked about
is the new oil.
Yeah,
it is.
And
it's the new curse.
It is the new
It's
oil.
the new curse.
Yes,
and that's the scary part about
Listen, data is more important than money. I would rather have 1 million people's information than $1 million.
Because you can make money off of it.
You know what's funny? At one point in time, only people who was talk like that was scam artists that will openly talk like this.
Give me a
Now everybody's like, if I can get a bunch of people's information I can sell to somebody else, I'll do it.
Just think about it. If you get $1 million right now, you ain't gonna do nothing but end up paying the person with the data.
It's true.
You're gonna end up paying him.
It's like people literally, people's, I'll say this, metacognition, their afterthoughts, people's impulses literally is what's being sold. That's I ain't gonna lie, that's funny. You better be aware of yourself and what you like and what you don't.
Oh man,
what happened?
I don't know. I gotta look into it. It was maybe I gotta change one of the settings or something in my what do you call it? Privacy and all of that, because you know. Unfortunately, it all don't drag over, and this computer is saying the Facebook one is sending data. I don't know, and never gave me that message, but we are still good on YouTube, so we'll figure out how to get it back around.
But I tell you this, fam, I want to hear what y'all had to say about this Obama interview with Charlamagne.
I didn't watch it.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Feel me? That was the tea of the week.
So
I know I seen a couple of responses.
Hey, that was the tea of the week.
Matter of fact, instead of doing before I get into my spiel, what I'm gonna do is I'm about to take this jump and then drop the drop the video onto Facebook the live, so that everybody can get it. Cause we about to go in, and I want people to see it. Can you get the link from the YouTube channel and just drop it on Facebook, tag me in, and then I'm gonna just send it out to everybody.
Gotcha.
But for everybody who is watching now, if you can share the video, that would be very, very helpful. We would appreciate it. Thank you very much. That is one way. I know people talking about supporting Black businesses on this Black Friday, helping out. Hit the like button. It's Black Saturday. It's Black Weekend. They got the cyber. I seen a pre-Cyber Monday deal. But before I get on a whole nother tangent,
pre-Cyber Mondays.
Pre-Cyber Monday deal.
I love America. We're gonna undercut everybody. America is such cutthroat. Like,
oh, and so we got one participant. Oh no, that's Gilded Sages. Who could that possibly be? But it probably is us. I don't know how that's going on right now. But in terms of the Obama interview, I thought it was doo-doo. The issue that I have with it is, one, you have Charlemagne and Obama going around, you know, they made some slight, they made some slight diss in terms of Black people not reading. Then you had Obama just lying straight through his teeth when he talked about what he wasn't able to do and how the GOP, of course, blocked his every move. He's still sticking with that. At the same time, he's talking about him being the most influential. It's like, son, you're speaking in contradiction. On one hand, you want to tell me you're the most influential person and you're this great deal maker, but at the same time, you want to sit here and say that you didn't do anything for African Americans because you got blocked at every step of the way. When you gave us DACA, you gave us, again, the gig economy, in which I was talking about. When you look at like Uber, the little dog walking businesses, it was a whole model. It was transitioning into the 21st century. Labor exploitation transitioned into the 21st century, similar to how his boy Biden transitioned mass incarceration into the 20th century. Again, you didn't necessarily invent it, but you dang sure gave corporations a way to maneuver and adapt to what we are and how we access and navigate as people every day in, day out. Then on top of that, they didn't really talk about much. I heard him say, you know, people engage with the presidency in the seat as a quote unquote monarch. And it's like, well, though you aren't necessarily technically a monarch, you're supposed to be the most influential person. And then on top of that, you can argue that it's not a monarch, but we can absolutely say it's an oligarch, and you have a lot of wealth, and you have a lot of power and influence. So you taking jabs at the electorate, the whole electorate in essence, specifically African Americans, I think is just very disingenuous when you sit there and talk about, you know, oh, well, I didn't have this or I couldn't do this. Sir, you could have did a lot. That's also, and for everybody watching, let's always be reminded in a way that as the executive, you have a portfolio, you have agencies that you can move in a different way. You have the power to influence internal policy of agencies on the executive side. You don't need Congress. You don't need your legislators on every single thing that you can do to benefit a specific community. You can change the organization, I mean, not the organizations, but the agencies in which you have to bring about change in African-American communities. Because as most people know, it's like, if you enforce, because again, the enforcement clause, you don't have them. There are things that you could have enforced, whether it be discriminatory lending practices or people not lending to African Americans. You could have came in and enforced those things and made sure that those dividends were given out and doled out in a way that was equitable to all. I thought the interview was just childish, of course, because you got Charlemagne and them, doing this thing where they ask a question and then he's like, "Oh, well, I'm happy you put to rest some of these rumors." Like, what? No, he didn't. He didn't. And then you got Angela Yee speaking when not being spoken, like just hopping out, just saying anything that don't necessarily make sense. And then of course Envy.
Okay, here's I gotta jump in now. Because my brain will lose a train of thought. I hear what you're saying. I get you. So basically I'm hearing a couple of things. Because I saw Yvette's response to it, which was hilarious. And I saw Jimmy's response to it was also hilarious. But what I'm hearing from you is that I don't know. Are you familiar with Hill Hopper?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Letter to a Young Brother.
I don't think I remember that.
It was a book.
It was a book. Yeah,
it was a book.
I
was supposed to get around to reading it, but
so it sounds like it's nothing but a bunch of Booker T. Washington. Pick yourself up by the bootstrap.
Yeah.
Be respectable. Be honest things. But what I love about it is Dr. Cornel West has always been Obama's behind about being disingenuous about his narrative. And that's where Yvette, when she talks about the tokenism, it's right. And when Jimmy talks about how the incarceration rate going down was something that he claimed, but it actually happened under Bush, what I'm saying is this is how the color line blinds. Obama was never a poor Black person. He's affluent. He has a social capital and tied to a social capital that isn't tied to the underclass or you know what I mean by the underclass. It isn't tied to the underclass. It isn't tied to the ADOS. Mm-hmm. It isn't tied to that. So what the problem with Obama is that he is able to play in identity politics in a way in which he emotionally isn't tied to it. Mm-hmm. He really isn't emotionally tied to it, never has. And this is why in my head, I'm kind of not doing my best not to laugh, because Obama was the same person that said, there isn't a white America, there isn't a Black America, there's only the United States of America. Mm-hmm. Then sat in interview after interview, even with Frontline questioning him. We know Frontline is PBS. Mm-hmm. We know that's mainstream white America, liberal slant all day long. And they was like, why aren't you doing enough for Black America? Mm. And this is why we can't look at white people and go like, oh, white people are starting or anything. No, they look at them like, you got the seat, bro. You know how I go. And PBS
put on like, for your people.
PBS was like, what's going on? But here's the problem with the Breakfast Club, because a lot of people is leaving the Breakfast Club. And the audience is leaving. And here's why. You see Charlemagne the trash. Now, I'm going to call him Charlemagne the trash, and here's why. Charlemagne wants to talk about the 48 laws of power, right? Charlemagne, if you can't read Rene Descartes yourself, don't talk to me, son. If you can't read Pascal yourself, don't talk to me, son. If you can't read Machiavelli yourself, don't talk to me, son. If you can't read these philosophers yourself, and you calling yourself Charlemagne the God, King Charlemagne, the illiterate king who established Western Europe, or what we know as Western Europe now with the Frankish leadership, don't talk to me, son. You can be the prince of aggravation, but you have never been aggravated by a younger brother. Nothing can aggravate anybody more than a younger brother. And I am a younger brother. I know how to aggravate just for the point of aggravating. Just because it amuses me. And what happens is when you have Revolt TV, this is why I love Dane. It all comes in. Revolt is underneath Diddy. Diddy is trying to play that black market. He's trying to be like, Kathy Hughes, TV One. He's trying to capture that blue chip black audience, that corporate black audience, that black audience that has always existed, the new Negroes. He's trying to capture that audience. And the problem is that you can't, and this is the problem with the black, quote unquote, corporate marketing tool, is that it try to put black politics and black entertainment as the same thing. So you can't have, Angela Yee is not a political analyst. Charlemagne the Trash is not a political analyst. DJ Envy is not a political analyst. So they don't have politically sophisticated questions. You know who probably could ask a politically sophisticated question? Plies.
Oh, you said that?
Because Plies throughout the whole thing was dropping his own take on what Trump was doing, what Obama was doing. He was giving his takes because Plies actually politically followed it. Have you noticed this? Look at West Coast rap, TDE. Look at how you can listen to Kendrick Lamar, who won a Pulitzer Prize for his work, how they talk about the prison industrial complex, how they talk about what happens when you get 3 strikes. That's even taking back to UGK, when they saw feds in town, in Texas.
But this is what I think. This is what I think most people are just like shields, right? Because I hear you, and this is where it gets a little tricky for me, at least, because where I do think, to your point about Plies, I think that Charlemagne has followed it because he's also given like takes. But this is my problem with just entertainers in general. They don't necessarily want to run that line because Charlemagne is probably the most known Mr. Aggravator. I'm gonna push the bar, but they all, when it comes down to, because politics has serious outcomes, it's like I don't want to tread lightly. So I think that political analysts or like because even
that's why we gotta tell them to stop talking.
Tricky because when you
gotta stop talking at certain points. You gotta like, nah, I don't want to hear Charlemagne on this. I don't want, and then the audience has to say, I don't want to hear you because you don't have a legitimate voice on this. Stop talking. That's hip hop. Stop talking. You're not KRS-One. You're not Chuck D. Stop talking. You're not Queen Latifah. You gotta stop talking.
But that's where value comes in, though, and where we always talk about politicals don't rise because our community don't really respect, and not even just politicals, but that whole industry, that whole slate of jobs where you talk about, like you said, the journalists, the analysts, the actual political, the elected. What?
That statement about politicals not getting,
politicals just don't get elevated because people don't, our community doesn't value politicals. We don't value the expertise because what we've done and where we've been as a community is everybody can have an opinion on every single thing. And we really have to get out of that and get away from that, because what it does is it destroys, one, credibility, and then 2, it doesn't allow for that person with the expertise to come in and say, well, no, we have to go, I'm gonna ask you this, and like in a series of questions that digs deeper, like you said, when you watch like Tone Video or Yvette, it's like that level of understanding, precision matters.
But we had because it before in America.
We did, but we lost it because, I hate the fact that politics was co-opted by pop culture. And now elected officials.
Y'all judo that though, because that's where I love politicians. Y'all know how to dance the same way us writers know how to dance. You know what I mean? You know the symbols and the signs. You know how to flip people who use you. You know how to. How about this? Politicians know how to lead a dance by making someone else think they're leading.
And this is where I tell people the trick of the masses is you being coddled, and you don't want to be coddled, because me appeasing you and you giving you what you want, even though that person knows that it is bad for you and that it is more advantageous for them to give it to you, but you think you've won because it's something that has been prompted to you. Because a lot of the stuff isn't real, I would say, honest, genuine thought.
Is that why y'all put us critics on your books?
Yeah.
It's like, this silence them. Shut up.
Yeah, that's why
you're talking too much.
That's why certain people,
they will ask for more if you keep talking.
And people reach certain heights and it's like, nah, you get co-opted and you get bought, just because a lot of people don't necessarily really be wanting to fight the fight anyway. But then on top of that, you got a lucrative offer. Like I'm sure most of the people, like even a Tony event, I'm sure they get many an offer to be like, yo, I need y'all to chill. Cause it's so precise that motherfuckers really can't argue against it.
Yeah.
Niggas have not engaged them. They're literally trying to like silence them with
the algorithm.
no, it ain't even the algorithm, but pure neglect.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even going to try to acknowledge that you're there, because acknowledging that you're there, I have to debate what it is that you're saying. And exactly. And that's what the fear is. I don't want to legitimize you because I know your argument is so precise. And if you are elevated in such a way, because
this is insulting the audience to a large degree.
It is.
Because we know. And this is what I always loved about poverty narratives, about people who come from poverty and understand it's like you can't be wasteful. And anybody that's lying to you is wasting the most precious thing you got, your time, son.
This is the thing. And I'm glad you said it is insulting the electorate. And this is where you know me, I always tell people, the electorate, show me a politician and I promise you they don't respect the electorate. Why? Because the electorate has become far too predictable to the extent that the electorate will go against its own interests as a whole. And what happens is again,
each other then.
Because again, everything is dumbed down to a certain extent in like 30-second clips. Nobody wants to watch an hour video. Nobody wants to watch anything over 30 minutes. So it's like, I'm gonna give it to you, but I know that you don't know certain things because everybody who actually studies and everybody who actually looks at information on that level understands that to condense something down is to omit. And you don't have that full vantage point when you're talking about even a whole video, people being auditory. You have to watch that whole thing. And that's where people, a lot of the times, get a lot of people wrong, especially when you talking about ADOS. I guarantee you people don't watch the whole video. Because to watch the whole video and go back and then process it, you see differently that a person is not necessarily on attack mode, but is trying to articulate where they come from.
My eyes started to twitch because I got frustrated because, like, that's, to me, that's fun. That's when they got the whole Broly thing. You explained it to me. I get it.
It is.
But it's go ahead.
But it's so interesting because you will see people that will sit and watch show after show after freaking show
because they've been told everything.
But it's like the consumption. You know what I mean? You consume this.
They've been emotionally manipulated, and so they get the stimulus, but they're being told everything.
Because this is the thing, and this is why I tell people I don't agree with edutainment. Mm-hmm. The problem with edutainment is
there's no work in it.
There, not only is it not work, the way that it is delivered hits the dopamine in the same way in which you would be watching something that is entertainment. Once you begin to interact with the screen in an emotional way, you lose that piece of mind where you're constantly interacting with and engaging and going back and forth and computing instead of just kind of watching and, like you said, allowing the storyline to develop and bring you into it. Because that's where when you'll hear somebody say, oh, well, I don't necessarily like reading this type of information or this type of book or watching this type of content because it makes my head hurt. The reason that your head is hurting is because you're processing. And it's new information. What people have to realize about like storylines and movies and stuff like that is it's the same story over and over. Yeah. Your mind isn't doing much work. Yeah. So people can binge watch because it isn't a lot of cognitive work being done while you're doing that. Most people can guess a movie all the way through. Most movies are predictable.
There's like 6 main like plots in the world.
And
they all follow like
similar.
That's Joseph Campbell's a hero with 1,000 faces. Then you got all that other stuff. That falls into my little world in which what we're saying is that people are not being challenged by their art, and therefore it's not art. All of this shit is propaganda.
Yeah.
And I'm here to say, because my thing is, I wanted to become a critic. I've always wanted to become a critic, but I'm like a Trefu type of critic. Is that on the more American way, Hitchcock, I'm going to make something so that other artists can critique me. That's why I wrote the novel. It's like, okay, if I'm going to critique people, then I got to give them an artwork that they can critique.
Yeah.
So we can go back and forth, right? Here's the problem with it. People want to think they are the smartest people. The moment you think you're the smartest person, someone is conning you. Yeah. Life is tricky.
Especially when it's too easy.
Like, it's too easy.
Especially when it's too easy.
So you know what we need? We need that old trickster grandparent around, the one that plays tricks on you, because you assume some shit. No, we need it. Because here's the problem. I remember,
keep you honest.
It keeps you honest. I remember I was doing this program, right? We was with these young people. And I was doing riddles. There was this one young lady, she talked to her father all the time too. She would take the riddle, because what you're talking about is imagination. People don't have imaginations. They don't. They think an act is an imagination. They think going on Instagram and posting something to Instagram is having an imagination. That's not having an imagination. Having an imagination is trying to figure out how to break Instagram, because you want Instagram to follow your rules. You don't want to follow Instagram's rules. Think about this, because this is what freaks me out about what we're saying. We're killing kids. Because I don't know any 2-year-old that wants to do what other 2-year-olds are doing all the time. 2-year-olds want to be what they want to be and do what they want to do. Some are friendly, some aren't. We're killing the imagination in people by giving them these screens, and they're not knowing how to interact with people. But back to the whole thing, I was giving out riddles. This one young lady, though, they got so upset that they couldn't grasp the riddle, because the riddle was, they thought the answer was supposed to be what they thought the answer was supposed to be. It was basically a riddle about time. And I was talking about the moon, and I wasn't talking about a clock. She thought I was supposed to be talking about a clock, like a sundial. I was like, no, it's talking about the moon. She got upset, but the other young lady understood that the concept I was talking about is the calendar, the length of time. So she grasps it. It's like she has an imagination. She can understand abstract problems. That's the problem with this propaganda. Nothing's abstract. We have no abstractions. Everything is so clear for you to get it. Everything is a reference or a popular reference. You know who talks about this all the time? Who used to talk about this? David Forrester Wallace. I don't think you all know him. I'll show him up. But anyway, my whole point is people aren't being challenged to think. They aren't being challenged. They think that someone else's imagination is their imagination. Is like, that's not how it goes.
At all.
Key and Peele even talked about this in one of their sketches. Busta Rhymes talked about this with Van Jones, about people thinking for themselves. It's like, is it that bad out there? People not really thinking for themselves?
Yeah, because a person will come to you for their way to think, not even necessarily where I'll come for perspective. Like, what you think?
Basically what we're doing now.
Right? But people have this thing where it's like, and this is how politicians really have so much power, is because people look to them and look to leaders. Because in every politico is an artist. In every politico is an artist.
You gotta understand.
You gotta understand.
That is an art.
That is
an art. It is an art to observe people. I will take them on that, please. Like, I'm listening.
But in that,
you say every politician is an artist.
I forgot where I was at first, though. Before that,
you were trying to like not counter, but add on to the point of what he was saying about people and not being able to really think for themselves.
Yeah, they come to you. Thank you.
And they come to you, wanting for you to be like essentially your God.
Yeah,
like everybody's looking for somebody else to be their God.
And what happens is, and this is where I tell people, the vote kind of gets weaponized against the voter, because what happens is, in the way that people have been trained to do it, a lot of people are voting just to absolve their accountability. A lot of people are just voting to say, this is the role of the elected. A lot of people are voting just to say, this is who I am bestowing my vote into to do what it is I think they should do, because not even what I want them to do, which is why you get people will respond to is like, well, you can't make them do this, or they get into the whole defeatist thing. It's like, well, you think they're going to do that because they are voting to just absolve the accountability of them not having to make the decision or put themselves in a very risque situation, which is why people don't really like activism in that way. There are a lot of people who are just like, I'm not going to necessarily do it because, one, we can all agree that, yes, people are shitty and dumb, but at the same time, what I always try to get across to people is if you don't help people, it's going to come full circle and you're going to be the one being undercut. Yeah. So it's like, look, you're so selfish, and this is how America really did a number on the whole population. People are so selfish that they don't understand that helping the person or community group, whatever, laterally helps them. Especially when we talk about building ecosystems and economies, because we're all interlinked in that way. And so people have a bad habit of wanting people to be their gods. Like, I'm just going to cast a vote so that you have to do the work. I'm not really concerned with that. Again, people will say, who wants to do all that political stuff? Or people will say, oh, I'm not into the politics. And what I need people to understand when they're saying that is that you are saying that you're not into the affairs of the city. You're not into how your city runs and works. You're not into people. You're not into the neighbor. Exactly. You're not into your community, because all of those things, politics is not just about the CNN and the C-SPAN and all of that. Politics is about everyday behaviors, everyday outlooks, everyday ideas, everyday transactions. That is what politics is. It's not this grandiose thing. It's everything encapsulated in every single industry.
That's what makes it so beautiful.
Yes.
Because it's a kaleidoscope of time. So, I'm weird with it. Did you have something that you wanted to say?
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure that y'all got up on speed.
No, I get that, and that's why, but a lot of people don't understand politics is one of the first social sciences. But again, I'm a nerd. I found myself in an ivory tower reading. I read theoretical books for fun. That's why I don't read fiction, because it doesn't challenge me. It doesn't. A lot of fiction. You know what? Some of the best fiction, children fiction and teen fiction. Because when you talk to children, you gotta talk up. Children don't make it make sense. That's how kids are. If it don't make sense to me, I'm gonna tell you it don't make sense. If you don't give me enough details, you stupid. I'm not dumb, you're dumb. That's kids. I'm not dumb. You're older than me. You're supposed to know more than me.
Especially because you always throwing it in my face.
Exactly. That's why I love kids. It's me and
especially
kids.
The smart ones who are douchebags.
Okay, don't talk about us. Exactly. That's how I'm with these authority figures. And people don't understand it's about authority. Let's go to censorship. Who the fuck wants to be censored? That's like the most anti-American thing you could ever want in your world.
They asking
to be censored. Who the fuck wants to be censored, bro? We begging
for it now, bro.
No, yes, man. At this point,
all because of Trump. And niggas don't understand that because you think it's sweet now. That this like when you hit notify me that they put the election stuff on there. We ain't use no language, election or none of that in the joint. And most of it was in the flyer. So it's like, so y'all just out here trying to keep up on everything.
Yeah.
So it's like
they want to categorize every single transaction that happens. It got to go in this category.
For what? So people can feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Life is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Life is uncomfortable. And I'm gonna be at, because it's like to blame all of your discomforts on the people you hate is to make them a god. Mm-hmm. Is to say that the reason you're upset is because of Trump at all times. It's like Trump isn't always there. And that's what I love about literature. Actual literature forces you to confront yourself, your own emotions, your own assumptions about life. That's actual education.
Mhm.
Actual education teaches you how to deal with the uncertainties of life and also how to deal with the tragedies that will come with life. Actual education isn't about, oh, I got a degree, I'm better than you. That is trash. It's absolutely trash. And this is why I say it's trash. We got to get, I'm going to go to the geopolitical now. Going to the globe. Okay, we got China, right?
Yeah.
Biden. I look at Biden cabinet, and it is corporate. You want to know why it's corporate? Because corporate need to untie themselves from China, and they're going to pivot into India. They want to pivot into India because it's India right now isn't showing the same ambitions China is.
Mhm.
Because China is projected to be the largest financial capital,
They coming from
financial
whole
world.
5-year plan.
They one China is real. So when we look at Xi Jinping in Beijing, we have to look at when they started DW News Australia, because excuse me, with rising middle class comes rising discretionary funds. Like we can just spend things on nice things.
Mhm.
So a lot of Australian wine is being bought in China, in mainland China. So the Chinese government hit a tariff on Australia, and this is funny, saying that the Australian government was subsidizing their grapes. And that's the funniest shit coming from China, given the fact that one of the reasons Trump had any viable judicial attack on TikTok is because it was sponsored by the state. So we can see how China, outside of the Belt and Road Initiative, is showing how they want people who do business with them, not just Africa, because everyone loves to talk about China and Africa, not just Africa, but Australia, which is basically a Western nation in the Eastern Sea. And so we got to look at how that geopolitical is going to come around, because what's that?
And no, continue, because I'm gonna.
I was going to say we got to look at that geopolitical, because we got to look and see. It's like, okay, we're talking about capital in America. America needs to focus. America needs to get to the point where we can't afford to have poverty. So we got to have actual budgets and actual measures that looks at not only income poverty, but it also looks at time poverty, so we can help people who want to help people in these inner cities, so we can actually get industry outside of rural areas as well. I'm listening.
Yeah, and I'll do you one even better. So China had just stopped its biggest entrepreneur, Jack Ma, from going public with Alibaba. So he shut that whole IPO down. He shut that. Well, Alibaba is the big one.
Mm-hmm.
This one was the payment system. I forget what it's called. But he shut the whole IPO down just because they wanted to rein in regulation on their whole way they do financing. Because Jack Ma's way of financing is he goes outside of the financial institutions and he gives the loans directly to the people who need the loans. Versus, you know how the banks work, you have to sort of qualify for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
So because China wanted to tighten their regulations, they actually shut down his IPO, and they're now going through a back and forth as far as Jack Ma being the most successful Chinese entrepreneur, essentially having to go against his own government. So it's like fall in line season is real. And I think 2021 is going to be fall in line.
Straight censorship. To your quick question though, talking about censorship, because you know TikTok, all of them was doing that shit. But did y'all catch the CNN segment where they cut off Jamal Bowman while he was in the middle of critiquing Joe Biden's cabinet picks, specifically?
No, I did not.
I've read about it. I didn't see it.
Yeah, so basically he was going in on CNN, and she asked him a question about, you know, Joe Biden's transition, and he was just going in saying how it's deplorable and disrespectful to the African American community because Rahm Emanuel covered up the death of Laquan McDonald, and then the African American community is the group that pushed him over the hump in terms of beating Trump, and it is a slap in the face. As he was saying that, his feed just like immediately cut off and went to like CNN, and it was done. It's a wrap. Like that's sober. And so like I think CNN tried to clean it up, of course, and say that it was technical difficulties.
Somebody caught that.
But I'm like, with that situation, I'm like, man, look, they gonna have to show me the paperwork because I don't believe it. I believe that y'all cut that man off while he was in the middle of the conversation, because even when we talk about, like you said, falling in line is a whole nother level of censorship, because Twitter is like always in an uproar. You got the Bree Joy girl who was a Bernie staffer. I feel like his press secretary when on his campaign. But she's a progressive leftist. And so, again, the establishment trying to like, hey, you need to chill out. Like, all y'all need to relax. And so, like, right now, as we all predicted, the left wing of the Democratic Party, is being stifled by, like you said, the corporatist picks and the money. But my biggest thing was, what did y'all expect? Are y'all that dumb and naive?
Yes.
Like, Lord Jesus.
I'm telling you,
the man
bro.
told you who he was. The man been who he was for what, 70 years?
Yeah,
Bro.
It's
crazy.
Because I'm like, for me, what's disappointing is like, okay, Simone Sanders essentially carried that whole election.
She did.
She should have been
first in
line. First in line.
People don't understand the belt.
Of any of those staffers, she should have been first in line.
But that's why she should have been out here caping for. And that's my thing with Black women. I need y'all to stop allowing y'all to be used and disrespected. Because see, for being a staffer, I can respect the fact that she stood 10 toes down for the person that she was getting, because you get paid. So I expect you to cape in ways that other people ain't going to cape.
You have a personal interest.
So I'm not oblivious to that. I'm not going to act like that's not a thing. But what amazed me though was how they had leverage as Black women, and we can use Simone Sanders as the conduit. You can check Joe Biden in the political climate that we're in right now when he comes out and says certain things.
That's a bold speech.
It's a bold, but when you talk about and when people get out here, fist up in the air and quoting all of these people, that's something. Again, you got more leverage than any of our.
I don't follow these blue bastards. Democratic Party.
No, I know what you're saying, but
what I'm just saying is, I'm talking about their teams. I think about politicians as athletes. They got a whole coaching team.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A lot of writers are assholes because y'all got these politicians sounding like they're actually intelligent, and we know they have writers.
Some of them are.
The ones who actually are go off script. And you can tell the ones that go off script because they have a natural speech pattern.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell the ones that don't go off script.
Sound like straight up robots.
Yeah. And that's a lot of the Black GOP. But anyway.
Even on both sides. Because a lot of the stuff where I see
I was thinking about South Carolina at that point.
No, I was just thinking about both parties in general in terms of their quote unquote top of the party, like the party leaders. Most of them don't necessarily have that. Like when I listen to people, a dead giveaway is that when you stick to the script so hard that when you get a nuanced question or a reporter or something is trying to engage in a very conversational way, you get back to this like hard script and it looks and sounds so ugly. It's like, it sucks.
But that's why my favorite Obama politician is Michelle Obama. Because I'm telling you now, it's like the way she be serving back questions, you can see her process it. Like, I don't even like the wording of this question. I don't like how this was worded, but it comes out so smooth. Again, I don't have any dog in this fight in the sense of Americans have to understand the only way you're going to have a sophisticated democracy is with sophisticated people. And the only way to be sophisticated is to make yourself aware of those and everything else around you. That's the only way you can have that, is that you have to put in the work. But I was asking, who was her staff writer? Because if you had a bomb-ass staff writer, who was her team? Because someone has to see the opportunity. What's the one in Georgia that y'all talking about?
No, I was talking about briefly Joy, the press secretary, but I think you talking about Stacey Abrams or Lance Bottoms or one of them.
So who's the politician you were talking about?
I was talking about Simone Sanders.
Who's Simone Sanders?
Simone Sanders was Biden's, I want to say chief of staff as his campaign manager.
Campaign manager. Oh, and then as a campaign manager, she shouldn't have to work for the rest of her life. As a campaign manager, look at how about this? How about this? What's his name? The dude that got Roger Stone.
He about to get pardoned.
No, he already been pardoned.
That was
for real?
Yes.
I thought that was Michael Flynn.
No, it could have been both of them. But Roger, point exactly. Roger Stone literally got all of this stuff, and Trump was like, "Oh, you gonna get?" Trump was basically, "Yeah, you gotta go through the court, but I'm the president. I'm just gonna pardon you on the side." And Roger was like, "Man, I ain't worried about it. I'm going ahead. I gotta make some contacts anyway. Because everybody states get some pieces. Everybody don't do time the same way.
Yeah, he with the country club.
every prison ain't the same. And it ain't only blue collar and black people that go. So my whole point is that someone had to see the opportunity. Who dropped the ball and didn't see the opportunity for her?
Biden has sole discretion.
We all know that these principals don't care.
No, but that was my point in terms of I need black women to really understand, especially in politics, that like y'all being used, like y'all social capital, y'all political capital, all of that is being used.
Your face.
Because there's no way that most of them shouldn't have got put on. Like I knew Elizabeth Warren wasn't going to get picked. Like a lot of these people thought that like, oh, he about to be putting it. No, my man out here talking about building.
When I saw John Kerry, I was laughing. I'm like, John Kerry hasn't been on the scene since when?
Yes.
Obama stole his shit in 2006.
They got John Kerry back out here?
Yeah, bro.
Oh, man.
Didn't John Kerry fail in Middle East talks?
When you said he failed?
Yeah. I was like, yeah, with Netanyahu. And Netanyahu's being chased out by Israelis.
Exactly.
By Israelis themselves.
And it's all coming to a head, though.
The whole world is fighting, though. Thailand having a problem. Germany don't want the king of Thailand in there. I'm sorry, I'm just going on. But when we look at the state of the world, because this is literally, we got no agenda. Looking at the state of the world, this political influx, I think a lot of people think, oh, people don't have enough money. They can't get enough stuff. And I think that's a very American or Western way of thinking about things. Some things when we're talking about is dignity. And I feel like a lot of people at this point in time are like, you violate my dignity.
Because that's all I got left.
That's all I got left, son.
Look,
you violate my dignity.
Y'all out here raping me every way. God damn. At least let me have that. And I think that's what's going to be the shift, or that's what I'm hoping is the shift coming in 2021. Because again, everything that's happening in the world, we bring it back to the States. It's like, man, we still ain't addressed this mass eviction crisis, man.
Yeah.
Every day I think about that shit, I'm like, God.
And everybody's playing politics with every single thing.
With every single thing.
Every single thing. And it's
even
like,
niggas that ain't politics.
It's like, young, how is you going to play party lines when it's people's livelihoods on the line? Like, how does that become a blue versus red thing?
Because it's always about self-interest.
And economies and policies.
But people have to eat.
Don't nobody care about that.
There's no bipartisanship.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's what you're looking for.
Needing to eat.
Because the electorate don't want it. I'm telling you now, the electorate don't want it, and that's one of my champion things is like bipartisanship.
Then everything needs to go.
Bipartisanship died with John McCain.
I feel you, but if
bipartisanship died with John McCain,
if there can't be bipartisanship,
there was a lot of bipartisan.
If there can't be any bipartisanship or people being able to get fed, then all of it needs to go. Like if you motherfuckers can't agree to feeding the people who can't fucking do anything, then it needs to go. Because at the very least, that is the least America could do. You see people that's about to fall under. I'm just saying, what good are you? What good is the whole political system if everybody's like not able to fucking live or everything's going to,
but I'm not gonna get reelected because someone in my district don't like the fact that I'm feeding someone in the city. And someone in the city is gonna get mad because I'm feeding someone in my district. So I can't get reelected.
But if all of this shit is interconnected and eventually you can't eat, then what?
That's not their problem.
Most individuals don't care about the next person. Like everybody think they about to be the next Jeff Bezos.
But when it's at your doorstep, then
it's too late by then.
I think that's where we're headed. It's going to be at everyone's doorstep.
But you have to believe
and if the government can't deliver, then there is no more government.
But you have to be willing to accept that things are not as the status quo is saying. You have to be willing to look away from the major networks. You have to be willing to accept that for me, this is fun. For a lot of people, this isn't lit enough. This isn't lit. And that's where we have to get to a point again of maturity. Everything is so immature. The politics is so immature.
Mm-hmm.
The conversation I love when we talk with Plies, when Plies like, we gotta start treating the women right. And y'all know I've been saying it off camera, like niggas didn't watch their mouth. It's like we need to really get back to that space where people actually stand for something. They actually care about something. Why? Because you can't pay for compassion. You can't pay for loyalty. Everyone knows this, man. Corporations. Here's the thing I don't like about America right now. We don't want to acknowledge when the other party is right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm not liking about America right now. We don't want to acknowledge when the other person is right. And you know, that willful ignorance. We do that here. I cuss you out all the time because everyone knows I have a whole line. If you're close to me, you know my line for when you say something to me and I don't like it, but you're right. I got a whole line for that. I'm going to keep that on camera. That's going to be my whole code word. But anyway, code phrase. I'm saying this because, to your point, bipartisanship, to your point, selfishness, people really do want to be the hero. And we need to tell a lot of people, you're not built for that shit, son.
Yeah.
You're not built for it. You're not built for.
My thing is, my question to you, though,
go ahead.
And this to continue on that path.
Mm-hmm.
Why people got an issue with being the helper? It's okay with being the helper.
Because
you got to be the main.
You know why? I thought about this as I was cycling the day. Do you know you have to actually be a loving, kind, and vulnerable person to put yourself through pain, not for your benefit, but for someone else's? You have to care enough about other people that you're willing to make yourself strong so then you can take care of yourself and someone else. Mm-hmm. You're the person when a bag drops on the flight, you put your mask on first and then you help other people around you who are panicking. It takes a lot to process that emotionally and keep moving. What we're dealing with, and you know, I said in the group text is like, uncertainty is the elephant in the room. People don't want to put into the effort because they don't see the value of it. Mm-hmm. So I always say we got to teach value to the kids before we teach them how people will devalue them. It's because I've seen it. I've seen people shut down. And when people shut down, that internal critic eats them alive. There's a lot of shame and guilt that's keeping people silent. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of, I thought I was going to be this person because they told me if I did this, and I went there, and you gotta be bold enough to go like, shit, they tricked me. I fell for it.
Yeah.
Haha, you got me. But guess what, bitch? Time is in my favor. You owe, and if I can't afford to pay for me, I damn sure can't afford to pay for you. So that means you also are tied to me.
Yeah.
I love how God goes.
And that's what a lot of elders don't get. That's why it's gonna be,
because they arrogant.
Yeah.
They think they, you know what a lot of these elders think they did? They think they smart enough to actually think. I'm gonna say it because I outthink you every day. They think they smart enough to outthink. They don't know that a lot of these financial people were the people who understood how to think in chess moves, in time, and trick them into believing and thinking, if you give me your money, I can take it into the market and I can make sure that you can retire at a certain age. You never have to worry about it again. This is why we can't let the stock market fall. It's not because, oh, just the 1%. It's not just the 1% that benefits from the stock market. You're talking about people with retirements. We're talking about whole cities with municipal bonds. When you start saying letting it crash, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. When you say let it crash, it's like, yo, when it crashes, your social services end, your municipal trash ends, and it's like people want to scream revolution. Who won't pick up the trash on Friday? And you think that's a small thing. Typhoid is real.
Yes.
COVID don't give a fuck about nobody, son. Stop thinking that your enemy is someone else. Your enemy most of the time is yourself because you think you should have some shit that you haven't earned yet. And the other time is your enemy is that you're not understanding how time is weighing on that ass. Time catches everybody.
Man,
it does. But I think the selfishness and the willful ignorance, though, is going to bring it to a collapse that it didn't have to go into. Because on one hand, where I tell people, I don't necessarily think, because a lot of the conversation, especially around going back again to Obama, people, he had to save the stock market and all, save the economy and all that. It's like, okay, I hear you. But he didn't have to do it in the way that he did it. You could have let them fall to scale them back. Because as president, with that level of influence, again, you had the Congress and you had the House and the Senate, which he doesn't necessarily like to bring up. Oh, it's Mitch McConnell. He's the smartest genius in the world. But with that being said, it's like, yo, you could literally, it has to be scaled back because it's inflated. It's artificial. You can't keep pumping it artificially to keep it where it's at. We have to, and that's where it comes again, to realizing and accepting, like, all right, cool. We need this thing, but we have to go and equalize it. Because if we don't, equalize, stabilize, I like stabilize better. We have to stabilize it because if we don't, this thing has the potential of collapsing in a way where we won't be able to manage it. It'll be a snowball.
It still is. And I do you one better. Why not prosecute the people who were dealing with these highly collateralized forms of debt? Because it was obviously illegal.
He could have did it.
It was illegal.
I know, but you act like you Germany. Germany only prosecutes their executives. I'm serious.
But we want to talk justice. Like, come on now.
This is America.
That is the time that you bring justice. On the people that's really doing the dirt.
Look, the only time
the people outside, they ain't doing no real dirt. It's them people that was in them banks selling people those mortgages that they couldn't afford, that was making the money off that stuff that they could have prosecuted each and every day. Matter of fact, one of them is in office now. What's his name? The one Kamala could have got.
Oh, Steve Mnuchin.
Exactly. The biggest culprit.
Well, you got Mnuchin. Mnuchin's is under the Trump administration, right?
Yeah.
But he got rewarded. He should be in prison.
No, but that's my point. He's under the Trump administration. Here's the one thing about Trump.
But now that what he talking about had happened prior to.
I know what I'm saying. But I'm saying he's in office now under the Trump administration. I'm making a characterization of Trump.
Gotcha.
And the characterization of Trump is that he don't mind being the old mob boss in power. He doesn't mind that shit at all. Like
he don't mind putting America and being honest.
He don't mind like
this is just crazy.
This is power politics at its best, and I don't have the time to spit shine. You know what he reminds me of? It wasn't Tom. And you know what? He's like a modern day Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson is responsible for the Trail of Tears and the dislocation of most native populations, and he didn't give a fuck that he did it. That's Trump. That's Trump. That's Trump. Trump is like, I'm the president, and Trump is like this. The president is the CEO of America's corporations, and that's how Trump sees America. And as a CEO, he's like, it's my vision. It's right, but what we don't talk about America is that we never had one economy. And this is the problem. White liberals, and I'm going to stop using white liberals because there's a lot of POCs. There's a lot of POCs and black POCs or off-whites. That's what they call them. There's a lot of whites and off-whites that's hiding behind the whites. It's like, it ain't, let's stop hiding behind the whites.
Yeah, they prop them up.
We're going to have your whole thing. Corporatists. The corporatists like to hoard their resources. So that's why they live in the same neighborhoods. They go to the same schools. They all want the same resources. Because it's like endogaming practices. It's like, if you're not a part of our class, fuck you. And the Red Sea is like, hey, yo, we supply half of y'all. This is why Trump wins with the law and order. Because law and order is where you have populations where people have to rely on a gun. Because the thing that may be dangerous is a moose, a bear. Because not all of America is this fucking city. So when we start to think about it geographically, and we start to think about the different industries and how you got pockets of just poor white people, like just West Virginia is just like poor white people. And then you got in rural areas that don't have access. But what America has to understand, it's not just poor white anymore. It's poor white, it's poor Latin, it's poor South Asian. We have to acknowledge our poverty problem. And the Democrats don't want to do that, but Trump doesn't. He leans into it.
The Democrats can't do it because it's all about opulence. It's all about creating the model citizen. So when you talk about, again, that's
Wait a minute, I never heard that interpretation. You said the model what?
Citizen.
Can you give me a definition or description of what you mean by that?
The model citizen is, to put in short what he said, that person who will fall in line, that person who will perpetuate the algorithms, the inputs and outputs, the behaviors in which reinforces the institutional power that is already there.
That is so dystopian. That is so 1984.
That's what it is. Because what happens is even when we see, like, that's where every community has that break when you talk about its affluent class versus its poor class when you talk about America. Especially the off-whites. Because, and this is where it gets kind of tricky, the off-whites are put in a position to model that behavior. And this is where I think class and race confuses people. It's like, no, you have race and then you have class within those races. And so even when you talk about, again, I saw an article that came out recently about the Latin community wanting reparations, and their reparations being a quote unquote race designation, in Latino becoming a race so that they don't necessarily have to fall in between that gray area.
Yeah.
But where they don't understand, though, that they would probably won't get that, is because it would destroy
the white statistic.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It would destroy how Democrats play with those numbers and play with identity politics.
Arab Americans are also arguing into that too.
Yes, because again, what is going to come to a head, and this is where I tell people, no, I do agree with Ados. They aren't saying anything that's wrong. Everybody understands it. It's just that everybody plays on it to their advantage. And this is why you always hear me say, no, let's get rid. If we aren't going to give Black back to African Americans, as we now have POC and other language to explain what quote unquote off-whites, the Latino community, South Asian community, Korean, everything that is non-Black POC, you all have your own language. When we talk about how race was classed in America before we get to 1965, there has to be lines drawn. And so when you talk about the Democrats' failure to be able to do that, it's all perpetuated in their ideology. They can't do it without undermining their own playbook.
Okay, let me ask you this then. Because the Far East Asian community, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, I'm thinking about those three major, because those are the three major economies we interact with: China, South Korea, and Japan. I have seen the model minority narrative, how they talk about being a model minority where, you know, when you look at the charts, Asian and white is always close. But and you hear, though, from the Asian minority group or the Asian bloc is like, that it's a trap. The model minority is a trap. It's like, and so what I'm hearing is that even though in minority groups, it sounds like there's a lot of silencing of dissenting voices of all types. Because I know there's dissenting voices of, when you say off-whites, it don't rub me wrong. It's just like, off-whites is accurate, and especially how America economically think about demographic blocks. Because that's how America thinks about demographic blocks. It's like white protected, off-whites not punished, blacks get the nigga. That's how it goes in America. That's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Nothing else need to be.
It's that simple. But my thing is, what I'm hearing from you is that means that, because when you look at it, I told you I'm doing America's Nurse, I'm still working on it. The third white paper, when you look at socioeconomic statuses for Black American women, that doesn't offset the health disparities, because you still have the racial prejudice, they're still treated differently by healthcare professionals, they still are undermined economically and all those other things.
They don't have the social capital.
They don't have the social capital. Their jobs are at risk more, so that also contributes to the stress. And so they live with chronic stress and gendered racism. Again, Dr. Phil Jackson talks about that. So what I'm asking you is that, are you saying that a lot of the reasons that we don't have a more robust conversation about minority positions within even corporate America is because dissenting voices are being silenced throughout the demographics?
Yes. You always said the dissent will get you kicked out the room first and for all. That's why I always speak on I need people who are ideologically aligned, because those are the dissents. If all of the dissents kind of came together and pushed back on all of those who were willing to perpetuate the nonsense, that's what has to happen to really get a large power shift in terms of, like, look, I know your group is over, and this is the tricky part. This is where
it's the president's dilemma.
Yeah, because the class that comes with being off-white has been what I've seen the deterrent. Because if you then say within a dissent, because mind you, we're all dissenting in different ways on different things, because our communities are different. But if we are the core of America in terms of the economy and how it was manifested,
I have a current argument, but I'm listening.
And the behaviors that were put in place and the systems and institutions that were put in place, those things are still in place. We have to understand that the off-white is brought into that to undergird it. With that being said, they have to acknowledge and push back on white immediately to, like you said, model minority. No, I'm not with that, because you all are doing this to a group of people. But what happens is, because nobody wants to, because the code is, if you remain silent, you won't get punished. But those off-whites who do come out in favor of African Americans, we cast you to that group economically, strip you of your social capital, strip you of your upward mobility, because you have come out, shed the off-whiteness, and come into an ideological space where it's like, nah, you know what? This white and black thing that I entered, and now have become the buffer, the strategic buffer. I'm removing myself as the buffer. I think, what's his name on Comedy Central put it best. What's the dude who took over? I think Jay Leno. Daytime show. Trevor Noah.
Oh, Trevor Noah.
Yeah. I think he put it very well. It's like, no, look, I am black, quote unquote. I am POC, but this ongoing issue that we are also caught up in the middle of is between whiteness and blackness. You all have to resolve that. And I think he said America, but I think we have to also just admit that America is whiteness and blackness at its core. Like everything else moves around it.
I got you. So I'll say this, and here's my question to you, because it's not a current argument then. My question is, are you actual dissenters then? Because to be an actual dissenter, you just like, all right, fuck it, I done made my argument. I'm just gonna put my foot to the metal and we just gonna drive until the journey fall off or something change. And I'm not saying it to be a purist, because I want people to see how tricky people are when they wear these masks. Because they wear masks. You can have someone who's an actual dissenter that's within the system. They funnel off resources. Or anything else.
You can get a Democratic Party.
You can have actual dissenters who funnel off resources, but they in the inside, and they keep it in. You can have actual hitters on the inside, but then you got people on the outside, and people don't talk about with the off-whites. A lot of off-whites have a lot of the same problems that black people made fun of. Mm-hmm. The identity issues of not necessarily having what they consider white people have, or what they think white people have. And that's why I want to get rid of this label of this whole whiteness thing, because people hide behind it. But why I ask that question is that if someone is marketing that I will shut up and I will stop talking about how black people have been injustice or the social injustice, it's like, no, you were never the center. It was your campaign to get on by acting like you were really for these people. It's fine if that was your thing. But if some consequences happened down the line, this is where I believe that we should get back to. And everyone talks about the 90s. Like, here's where the 90s was the epoch of black arts and black politics. People were open, aware, and we had a broad range. Mm-hmm. You had Queen Latifah the same time you had NWA. You had De La Soul in Tribe Called Quest at the same time you had UGK and all the rest of them. For some reason, blackness, especially ADOS, has been erased from the pop culture. And so many people see blackness through pop culture. And here's the truth. I see this all the time, even ADOS black people will appeal to the white gaze. Mm. And that's Toni Morrison's The Bluest Eyes. Like, I've been around with enough white people to know that white people are people. They know when they're being fooled. They just don't know how to have a conversation with black people while coming off as racist or seen as racist, because again, we all inherit, as Trevor Noah was saying, we also as black and white people need to understand, we inherit this shit. We don't come out the womb like, yeah, I'm on a black team. Yeah, I'm on a white team. We don't do that. I'm like, wait a minute, what? I gotta do what? I gotta follow what kind of rules? And so we gotta understand that we've been socially indoctrinated into these things. And that's why the segregation, the legacy of segregation doesn't serve, because what a lot of people would say to me is like, oh, it's rare that you have street knowledge and institutional knowledge. It's like, I know the value of what you're saying, so I'm gonna write that in my fiction. But what you're basically saying is that I understand what it means to live in one side of America, or what Dr. King would call the other America, and I know what it is to live in what you call America, the mainstream institutional America. So I know how to behave when it's time to behave, but I also know how to navigate when there's no rules.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect. That's a perfect way to put it.
I'm listening.
Yeah, just to piggyback a little bit off that, that's the reason why we can't really have conversations about some of the things that the other side, white people suffer from, because there's a fight for them to have about income inequality, and the fact that they've created systems where you have so few people controlling all of those resources, and they aren't able to compete with that anymore. You can't start a business anymore and think that you're gonna wealth your way out. No, you're gonna start a business and Bezos is gonna buy it. You know what I'm saying? So there's an income inequality that they would love to fight against, but you have these off-whites, as you say, that will uphold their whiteness. And if you're being upheld, if they're upholding your lifestyle, you can't point your finger up because everybody's pointing the finger at you when you want to point the finger at them, but you can't because everyone wants to be you.
Yeah, and it's Black affluence in the same predicament, same old situation. We just been in it for a longer time, and I heading into 2021, my thing is like, I hope that people get it and finally like wake up to it, in terms of, look, we can't keep capitulating to tomfoolery. Like, I get it. I get our livelihoods are based on it. And I get that, because even for myself, where I won't advocate in a certain way.
I agree.
Because
there's people I would not chant for. I'm listening.
And not necessarily who I'm advocating for, just in terms of how I do it and go about it, because I think a lot of people misunderstand the seriousness of what's at stake. You talked about censoring earlier, and you talked about we talked about a lot of different stuff, and when we mix all of those different things, when you talk about the TikTok, when you talk about the Instagrams and the Jeff Bezos and this mass wave of censorship, whether it be through starving people economically, whether it be through isolating people, or whether it be just straight out through technology. And when we talk about transitioning into the issue with, on top of the gig economy, you have the tech industry about to remove a whole set of jobs. And then the issue around people not really trying to adapt to that. And then seeing on top of that, Joe Biden come in with the transition pace that he has made, being, Clinton, previous Clinton staffers, Biden staffers,
some of them
Bush admin. Some of them are Obama people too. But just like you said, when you talk about the Beltway, it's that revolving door, and that's where the problem comes in, because the ideology is being perpetuated. And like you said, it is very much that if you are not a part of the group or the in-group, you are blocked out because you are a threat to what it is and how they move. And they don't necessarily want people challenging that.
And what's sad about it is those weren't the people that got him in.
But that's not.
None of those people were the horses that rode him in.
This is I would say kind of true, but not so much. And the reason that I say that is because what you're talking about is the people who worked in his campaign directly that you saw
front office.
Yeah, the people who lent him.
That's the front office, the athletes.
But when you're talking about the people who he's picking in transition, this is where I always tell people you have to care about the background of politics, because those people, I am sure, got him over the hump. When you talk about money, and this is why I get on people about like the whole sports and where your attention goes, because you don't know who you're funding, how that funding is then wrapped back around to a person who doesn't necessarily have your interest. Because I can guarantee you Rahm Emanuel put on for him. But just because he wasn't front center, I guarantee you he was put on for him. That's like saying just because you not on Front Street or you on my payroll, my immediate payroll, don't mean that you behind the scenes moving all different kinds of people, fundraising, all those different things. What we're seeing is some of the picks are like, yeah, I need you on the other side of the team, and I need you so that we can mitigate, make these deals, and get back to business. Because it's more of a let's get back to business administration. And when I say business, I'm talking about let's get back to normal. He said it best. I'm trying to get back to normal. Yes, the normal that we were trying to get away from when people voted for Trump. And we're going back to that. And that's why I don't necessarily feel any type of way about it, because if they do this and make this cardinal mistake, it is going to set up another GOP admin after this, because you're going to, like I said, you're going to get more protest votes. So I feel some type of way about it, but I'm not about to sit up here and keep talking to people, because again, the electorate has its issues. They have to get tired enough too, to where, look, y'all, you can't continue to just say that, oh, well, this is the lesser of two evils, or, oh, well, we can't demand for much because this is what America is. How about, like you said, develop an imagination and see what America can be? It doesn't have to be this way. It really doesn't. It's gross. It's grotesque. It's awful. It's disgusting how greedy people are, how negligent people are at this given point. And I'm talking about affluence, and I'm talking about poor people, because poor people also have to get to the point where it's like, look, you cannot try to ignore this away. This is life. And if you try to ignore it to your way, to answer your question, when it gets to your doorstep,
it's too late.
It's too late. Because 9 times out of 10, you haven't prepped, you haven't planned, because you tried to ignore it away. Because the thing about time, again, time is not infinite. Time is a very finite thing. So while you're working, while you're partying, while you're doing all of these things to distract you from the reality is creeping up on you like a little monster, like, hey.
I'm here, buddy.
It's here. And I feel like it's at everyone's doorstep. And I feel like
not everybody's.
You don't think so?
It's not.
You don't think COVID-19 has brought
COVID-19 is
doorstep?
Reality is your sober friend that tells you to stop drinking, and Netflix binging is drinking. Anything you're doing outside of saying, hey, I need to get my health together because the hospital may not be able to take me in. Anything outside of I need to get my diet together because it seems like if you ain't got good health, you may not make it. Anything outside of I need to be prepared because of systemic problems and the volume of people who want to experience a problem is not being sober with yourself. It's not acknowledging what you have already accepted. You have to get to a point, and that's even me with this whole weight loss journey thing. It's like you have to get to a point where you understand that you are your enemy because you don't want to hurt. You have to feel pain. America's a dope thing, son. It's been a dope thing for a while. Yeah. The oxy, and oh no, you being mean. It's like oxy, son, fentanyl, Xanax, Zoloft. It's like people have been for a long time disassociating themselves from the reality that they don't like their work, they don't like their job because they want to justify their check so they can justify their stuff. People can't afford stuff anymore. The credit debt is a real thing. The national debt is a real thing as we look at the other, as being in a multipolar world
We need to see how the EU is not being a huge fan of America right now, especially with Germany leading the way and Macron and France starting things with Turkey. So they got their own thing. We got Brussels getting back and forth with Boris, and Boris keep having COVID. Then you got Sturgis, who made feminine hygiene products free. We got to look at the world for what it is. America, the American century has aged, is no longer here. Americans have to become a lot more solidified in what it means to be American instead of trying to be the best American and show that someone else isn't as good as they are. Because everyone just want to be so fucking special like the King Midas. I'm sorry, I wasn't that track, but that was my last thing.
No, tonight is the perfect night for diatribe.
Yeah, it is. But I'm just so you don't believe that like COVID-19 and all of these issues are bringing everything to everyone's doorstep?
And I'll tell you why. Because yes, COVID-19 is real. But because, like he said, of the systemic issues that have created the two economies and the two societies, everybody is not experiencing COVID in the same way. And I'll say this, even for myself, I just bought a fucking MacBook, bro. That's not the same as somebody who was in that line at the article where you had hundreds of thousands of people on the highway driving up for what you're going. The difference between me and most people is I feel compassion for those people, and I am extremely blessed. And the reason that I don't really complain these days anymore and I have been in higher spirits is because I have my family. My family is in good health. I still have a job. I still have a means to make a way. Everybody can't say that. Everybody around me can't say that. And the reason why COVID-19 isn't the wake-up call is because everybody can't see COVID. Even people who are experiencing, us as African Americans, think about this, bro. It's people still out here just moving any kind of way, as if it never hit, as if it never dropped. That's why COVID-19 isn't going to be the fallout from COVID-19 may bring everybody together, but not COVID-19 in itself.
But that's what I'm saying though, because look,
but that's speculation, that's projection.
If you have
that's foresight.
But think about it. If your money, okay, let's say you could buy the greatest meals in the world. Poor people are working in these places.
You have to care about that.
You have to, and that's the
food that you eat.
What you're projecting.
What you're doing is you're putting a thought in a person's head that never enters.
Because
you gotta literally remove that thought. That thought doesn't enter their head.
What you're doing is projecting your ideology and how you move onto a mass of people who don't think like you.
I can think that way. That's why I can understand it.
I can see both sides.
I can be selfish brat quickly.
Like, I mean, okay, the selfishness is in what you're saying. That I get that. They're not giving a shit. But people are being aware of who does what for the economy for you to enjoy what you have.
You know, but why would that be? Why do you think that that's a wake-up call?
Because that shit is connected. Like, bro.
But you have to see it. But this is what you're missing. For your equation to work, the people who you're talking about have to see the connection to bring them to the emotion. People aren't brought to the emotion. The reason why I'm saying what I'm saying is because the statement that I made and the statement that you're talking about is a projection on time. It has not happened yet. It may happen in future. Because again, I thought Trump was going to be the wake-up call. It didn't happen.
Yeah, right.
So we have to wait because I have been defeated by the hubris of mankind on so many occasions that I'm just like, everything that I think is going to be the thing to get us to get it fails. Yeah. It fails. Even when we talk about African Americans, even when we talk about like an ADOS, you would think African Americans will understand ADOS at least intellectually to the extent that, oh, they're talking about us. they have to get it first
Yeah.
to get that outcome that you want. I'm not saying I believe that yes, COVID is consequential, but when we're talking about the macro and when we're putting in everybody into it, I can't use myself as the barometer. And a lot of people, and this is where conversations go wrong in a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that somebody says is, well, it's not all. We know it's not all. That's a cop-out. Two, oh, well, I don't. We're not talking about you.
Yeah, you're right.
We're talking about majorities of collectives, different coalitions in their majority and how their majority move. Because it's like you said, their majority is influencing the mass, and in a lot of cases, silencing the
dissenting members.
Yeah.
And so that small minority doesn't matter at this point. It matters, not to cut you off.
Go ahead.
It matters, but you have to, the people within your coalitions have to make them matter. Going back to what we first said, politicals don't matter in African American communities. A lot of these people have been out here doing this work and it don't get any attention and it don't get enough notoriety because we don't value it. Would I love for them to value it? Absolutely. But they don't.
Because it doesn't get enough white praise. Hey man, I love a man Tupac. No, it's for real. People he say, oh, call you a Gemini, but I love Prince. Whatever. When Tupac says it's easy for me to be neutral because people are lying to themselves, that's my life. I've been around mixed, all that other stuff. It's easy for me to be neutral because people lie. But to your point, right? Because my mind, I just be thinking about it as the British rebels. People call them founding fathers, but they really British rebels because they were subjects of King George III. This way I can, and I don't do it just to be quote unquote sacrilege or to be antagonistic. It's like you got to understand the framework that they were thinking of when they started the Constitution. They understood that things were going to change. They understood people. They understood the party politics. They understood the opulence of the minority. You got to look at the Federalist and Anti-Federalist papers. That's why I say there's two Americas. I always say there's two Americas. There's one America that actually understands America, then that America entertains everybody else. I always say that. That's my thing. But with that said, Migos, what's the price? Whenever that starts playing in my, you know how you got that earworm, something starts playing in your head, I know that I'm looking at something that's too cheap for what it really is. What I mean by that, if you think about that refrain, what's the price? Price is going up. They're telling you that the price for their feature is going up. But when you understand supply chain, when you understand human capital, social capital, once you understand that there's a cycle to a product, you got the inception of the product, you got a product being made, then you got the waste from the product, then you got when the product is no longer being used. When you begin to understand how, when this is what I would say, white people see the market, then you begin to understand how they see structures. And for me, white people are members of Starfleet and everybody else is the aliens that join. I'm a nerd. People out there will get it. But what I mean by that is that they're the humans in Starfleet, but everybody else is the aliens. So the off-whites are aliens,
and we talking
the black
about
people are aliens, Star Trek: The New Generation.
Yeah.
I'll show you after this what I mean. With somebody
I got
get
you. Like, because we talking about like with that's with Spock and all of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Everybody else is an alien. They're the only ones that can be members of Starfleet as humans.
Gotcha.
That shit is hilarious. I love that. I'm gonna keep using it. But what's the price coming in my head when I'm looking at the shirt? Because I like rag and bone. Love those shirts. That's $100 shirt though. And for me to be able to do that and the things I do, I know my mother was the one that transversed poverty. I did. I was born in an impoverished environment because Ward 8 was divested in the 80s and 90s. That's a social capital. But when you're looking at a shirt and that shirt is cheaper than your sandwich, or your sandwich is actually cheaper than you getting a soda, Or here's the real trick. The 2-liter is cheaper than the 20-ounce. The 2-liter, seriously. So I'm not paying. So I'm not paying for volume at this point in time. You telling me I'm not paying for volume, I'm paying for convenience. So that's where when I travel outside of the States, you get the 2-liter, grab a cup, you solve a problem. Not only do you solve the serving problem, you solve the problem, you're not gonna drink all this goddamn sugar in one go, but you still get more for less. We in America gotta understand our pricing is off. Fashion is talking about it because they got to. They have to. Our pricing is off. The pricing for the housing is off. Everybody can't afford luxury.
Goods.
All of it's off. It's off. The prices are off. And why the prices are off? Because the model is white affluent family. If the white affluent family can afford it, then it's assumed everyone else can afford it. And if they can't afford it, it's a problem. When the truth is, it's like, nah. Most of you affluent families have come from families that had capital throughout the 20th century, so that you all don't have to buy the same things that the rest of us have to buy. You don't have to buy a college degree. You got legacy. Well, someone can afford it. You can give your grandparents. You don't have to buy a house because you got investment properties. You have so much capital you can afford to take risks. Yeah. And going back to everybody's point here, what the average person has to understand is that you want to be average. Stop wanting to be exceptional, son. Exceptional people be having exceptional fucking problems, son. I'm serious. It's at the point now, bro, when I'm looking at like, yo, to be a millionaire and not an alcoholic, that means that means Curtis Jackson got some pretty good head on his shoulders, because money is people's money. And the higher you go up, my man, what's his name? Chicago rapper, Kick Push, Lupe. When he did the whole video
about what?
When he was talking about how people, when they get their money and how you get into these little bubbles, this upper echelons, how crazy they get. Lupe said that. Cuddy has said that. There's been a whole lot of people who come out and say that shit. It's like, son, it's to the point now, and I'm gonna get off my soapbox, right? I will look at, and this is why I'm not jealous. I will look at an affluent, and most of the time, affluent white women be the first to tell you this bullshit. But I would look at an affluent white woman who comes from money and is marrying new money, and look at the reproductive rights that's coming in through the courts and ask her, have you ever read Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy? Have you ever watched a documentary by Dr. Lucy Worsley? Do you know why feminism actually was started by white women? Because they were tired of dying in childbirth. They didn't want to have these kids back after back after back. They had to. Do you know about the angel of the household? Do you know about how they would economically strip you? Do you know about social death? If you don't know about these things, I don't think you should be fighting for powerful men, because you'll become their first prisoner. You will be the first prisoner. I'm not here to scare you. I'm here to say, like, if somebody's not respecting your agency and not giving you the resources to do what it is you want to do, don't fuck with them.
Yeah. And with that being said, I think we can finish it on we started a little bit late, but we're going a little bit later. So if you are still here watching the video with us, please like it, just hit the like button, share the video, share the link. Definitely helps us. We appreciate it. And follow us at Gilded Sages on IG. Our good brother over here, Quan the Poet, solicits the questions. You got any topics that you would like to talk about, definitely feel free to DM message us that. or by email, gildedsages@gmail.com. You could do it either way, either or. But we want to just thank everybody for coming out on a Saturday to chop it up. Listen, hear what we got to talk about. Definitely appreciate it. For all of those who didn't get a chance to call in, every episode, as you all know, you can call in. This one typically didn't have an agenda, so you could call in the whole time. And when we do those, I'll make a point to let people know. Usually for every other one, we do the agenda for about an hour and then open up the chat room. So y'all enjoy, be safe, stay COVID free, man. And again, just look at what's going on, pay attention. Can't run from it. Things are going to happen. I don't know exactly how. Hopefully they put some solutions in place, or our world leaders get it together. And the electorate gets it together to push back on the negligence and malice of world leaders. So y'all be safe. Much love. We out. Until next time.